So it appears we have a quorum, right, Dean?
Yes, I was just going to
Excellent.
to run through. We have I don't see a layer, but we have everyone else.
Awesome.
And
Amazing.
we also have Mel as a alternate who's also present. So yes, you are well on your way to a quorum.
Great.
Well, you're well past your
We're
way.
past it. Yeah. Fantastic. Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate everyone's last minute attendance and flexibility. I'm going to run through the sort of fluff of the agenda real quick so we can get to the meat of it. I'm not going to have us do introductions. I think we all know everybody on screen. I'm not going to go over the protocols. Please be engaged. So we'll try to keep it short. I am going to move right into conflict of interest disclosures.
Lauren Weston, I am requesting money. I have a conflict of interest. And Mel theoretically is an alternate and also cannot vote because she's also at the conservation district.
Great. Thanks very much. Thanks to Dean and Nora for sending out the information in the packet. Hopefully everybody got a chance. If you have any questions about the agenda, please speak up now. Otherwise, I would seek a motion to approve that agenda.
Lindsay, I'm just having a tiny bit of trouble hearing you. I can hear other people all right.
Apologies. Does that improve at all? No, that's worse.
No.
It's a little muddy. Yeah.
Let me try moving around what my microphone is going to.
Does that improve at all?
Oh yeah. At least for
Yes.
me.
Yes, it did very much. Thank you.
Awesome. Kent.
I'm willing to make the motion.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second to approve the agenda that was sent out?
I second.
Dan. Oh. Right, lots of seconds. Thank you. I'm going to go with Dan because I saw him first. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the agenda and moving this meeting forward, please indicate with a hand raise. I have Lindsay, Sarah, Dan, Lauren, Kent, Ted, Heidi, Beth. Excellent. Minutes from the December 3rd meeting. Since we're all gathered together, any questions or discussion about that? And if not, would seek another motion to approve those.
I move.
Sarah's made a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it since I didn't mute myself.
We've got a second from Kent. Again, once more, any discussion about those minutes? Thank you guys for writing them up. It's always great to see all of the business in one place.
And I'm just going to mention Alaire has also joined.
Great. Seeing no more discussion, all in favor of approving the December 3rd minutes, please indicate. We've got Lindsay, Sarah, Dan, Kent, Lauren, Heidi, Ted, Beth, and Alaire. Motion carries. Great.
Can I just ask a clarifying question, please? Back to the vote. Lauren spoke up that she had a conflict, but then voted. So how does that work?
She was declaring the conflict for the meat of the agenda. She doesn't have a conflict for approval of the agenda or the meeting. She's got a conflict for the vote of the budget adjustment article. So she can vote on all actions not related to that.
Got it.
Any public comment on items not on the agenda? Since we're all gathered here, anyone want to say anything to the Blick wide? Seeing none, we'll move right into the reason for the special meeting. I'm going to hand it over to Dean or Lauren.
I'll just say a few brief words and then Lauren, you should be able to share if you wanted to visit any of the parts of the spreadsheet. This is a request to amend the maximum amount of funding that can go towards the project. It's more than what can be processed administratively or by staff in consultation with the chair and vice chair. Uh, as the brief memo indicates, the request is for $226,000, and that would bring the total amount of QUISP funding for the project to just a bit over $1 million. And Lauren can get into the details for the how we got here, how she got there, how the project got there, and why the request needs to be made. She can also say a little bit about why this is being requested as part of a special meeting rather than waiting. Unfortunately, I guess things gelled just a little bit after the last meeting, and so it would be 2 months otherwise, or nearly 2 months. In the packet, there was an excerpt from a spreadsheet that had many more tabs in it than what was shared, but I think I'll just stop talking and let Lauren walk people through it.
Thanks, Dean and Lindsay, and everyone for being here. I know squeezing in a meeting week before holidays or during the holidays, I'm so grateful, as is my contractor. So we went to take out the Trout Brook Reservoir Dam this year, and you all had graciously approved a implementation budget, probably about a year ago, honestly, at this point, for about $800,000, which was based on the cost estimate from the engineer. Wonderful, great. We went through a bidding process and we selected the lowest bidder, and got things moving as quickly as we could. And then we got to the site and we started the work. And boy, oh boy, this site was a challenge. To say the very least, this site was a challenge. I'm happy to get into all the details, but moral of the story is that this fall, we ended up working on the site about 5 weeks longer than we were expecting to, and that anybody had thought we would. And then state regulators told us we had to stop. And so we didn't get to finish. So we also have to go back in the spring. So it got expensive, as you can imagine. And at the end of the day, as Dean said, I need about $226,000 more dollars, which is about 30% of my current budget, bringing it to a little bit more than $1 million project. That's really what's important here. I do have a really fun time-lapse video of the construction if people want to look at that while they mull over this decision. I thought you guys might like that. I'm also happy to go into all of the numbers if you have any questions. And I guess I will say too, there have been about 5 meetings between myself, the engineer, and the contractor to try to really understand what the cost overruns were and to try to predict what the spring would cost. And so I just want to say, like, these numbers did not come about lightly. They have been analyzed to a very deep degree, is what I will say there. Again, happy to give as much information as folks want, but also happy to give people back their day after I show you this really cool video. And so luckily we also had set the cameras up. Do you guys see it? Okay. Yeah. We'd set the cameras up way before we actually started construction. And so we have all this like before data. And then all of a sudden, really soon, there we go. Really cool things start to happen, and we're taking the dam out. Ta-da! So the dam is gone, which is good. All the sediment upstream is not gone. And so that's why we have to go back out in the spring. And it snowed. So anyhow, that was really fast, and I'm trying to respect everybody's time, but any questions? Yeah, Ted.
Yeah, what are you doing to mitigate all the sediment for the winter and into the spring?
Yes. What an excellent question you have there. We had to create a pilot channel through the impoundment, even where it was pretty impossible to work, to try to continue to dry out the sediment that we literally could not move. And so that had some wear and tear on some equipment. We do still have 2 filter berms in the stream around a super undersized culvert, which is actually a good thing for sediment trapping over the winter. And we do plan on going back out. We also do have, this project required an individual construction stormwater permit. And so we have an incredibly high threshold of erosion controls that are on this site and anywhere that could be stabilized. They did also put down straw and they seeded. Obviously, some of the seed was put down in November and probably didn't take, but we truly, truly, truly did the best we could given this site was so wet.
Yeah.
It was so wet. And we couldn't get it to dry out. So we did the best we could, and we'll have to go kind of scoop out the stuff when we come back in the spring to that's been caught.
Follow up on that, Lauren. This is the lessons learned in this is going to be invaluable to all other dam removals or pond removals.
Yes.
I think, unfortunately, you're becoming an excellent textbook case in what things can happen. That can go wrong,
Yes. I've talked to Karina Daly already. I think I have the February meeting is just me explaining this project for the dam task force meeting.
Yeah, well, it's good. I mean, this is good information because some of the concern before you pull out a dam is people are like, how wet and what do we do with all the sediment behind it?
Right.
And no one really knows until it comes out.
Right.
That's one of the great roulette actions with dam removals.
Truly. Yeah, Lair, so you came off mute.
Yeah. I was just wondering if you could give a little more detail about just kind of like what changed and what was unexpected and what were the different factors that ended up having this, it's the significant change.
Yeah. We ended up not getting our Army Corps permit until about the middle of August. So we couldn't start construction until about 6 weeks later than we thought we would be able to. So we missed that really dry period of the summer, which is also a bit of just a weird timing flaw. Honestly, the reason it took so long is because the sediment was so wet. The dam also ended up being at least a third larger than we thought it was. Actually, it might have been 1.5 times. So however you want to count that, a third or a half. And so that took a couple extra days of concrete removal. And then once we were finally able to get things drying out in early October, it started raining for 3 weeks. Those were the main contributing factors. It was so wet. And the site had some pretty intense constraints with where trees were. So you couldn't crawl along the edge of the impoundment really. They were sinking excavators. We tried to get truck mats in. We did get some truck mats in. And they were snapping, and they had 5 truck mats stacked on top of each other to try to go 8 feet. And we tried a vac truck. We discussed using a manure pump to try to get the sediment out. We brought in, the contractor ended up bringing in the CEOs of 2 other construction companies to ask them what they would do. And we had no way of getting the sediment out when it was that wet. But at that point, we kind of had to get a pilot channel. So we still had to get through the mud to some extent. And so currently, the pilot channel is in the wrong place. We have to go back out in the spring and move it. But hopefully this is at least dewatering over the winter. It was one of those perfect mixes of everything that did.
Thanks. And just to Ted's point, it's what would you do? What are the lessons that you would want to do differently? I know.
I think this project in particular is a really good argument for phased dam removals where you like lower the dam itself over 2 or 3 years. I think there's maybe also a decent argument here to look at that in-stream work window. And if it can start any earlier if you're in a drought year. I think it's also a really good argument to increase the staffing at U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and not to have cut all of the positions except one this year to process permits. Yeah. Kent.
Did I understand you to say that a regulator stopped the project at some point? And what can we learn about that situation?
Yes. So I believe it was November 5th. Chris Brunel came out and we had a permit extension for our river stream alteration permit, which again should have closed on October 1st. We'd already gotten an extension to October 24th to try to finish. And at that point, Chris had asked us to pause till he could get out there, and then we got out there. And basically the moral of the story was, you've done what you can. We have to get out of the stream for the winter. And so that was our hard stop was when Chris told us to get out of the stream. Had you had a hand up?
Do you feel you could have gone on for another week or two?
I don't think that another week or two would have made a difference with how wet it was.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you answered my question, Lauren, and it was if Chris had given you an extension and how far were you getting along with that extension, but you answered that pretty clearly. You weren't.
Yeah, we weren't getting much for it, and it poured in October too.
Yeah.
It was just a perfect storm.
Lauren, do you mind going over the numbers a little?
I would love to.
I appreciate that table that was in the packet, but if you don't mind explaining it a little, I appreciate that.
Yeah. Folks see that? All right. Okay. So I'm hiding a couple rows here that I'm happy to show, but this tells the important parts of the story. And again, I can add more information. So the budget that I was working with was for a little under $800,000 total, with $120,000 for engineering and design and construction oversight, and about $700,000 for $655,000. I rounded up a little too high there for the contractor, and then let's call it $16,000 for my time and my staff's time to manage the project. This next column is, okay, that's the budget I had. And then I had contracts with my engineer for $120,000. So those two matched. And then we were able to get a bid from our contractor at about $520,000 to actually do the project. I would like to note here, I did have 5 bids on this project. The next lowest bid after the 520 was 948. So theoretically, we very well could have been having this conversation 6 months ago and then probably still have not finished this project because of the weather. So just for that. And so then this column E is basically saying, okay, I had $656,000 available in my budget with Dean, but I had only had to contract this much. So there is a difference here that I already had to play with before I'm coming to you with this request. So this column is my request to add on. And this includes the 5 extra weeks from this fall, plus our projection for what it's going to take to finish the job in the spring. And so based on how much time this takes me, I'm assuming my time, probably about $6,000 worth of time left. We need to get the engineers back on site to do construction oversight to make sure the job gets done. And we need to get the contractor back on site and remobilized and paid for the overruns from this fall. We might get you to the 226. And so both the cost changes that have already happened this fall plus the spring is accounted for in this. And then actually one of Dean's question or framing questions was, why did I make a special meeting? About $200,000 of the cost overrun was from this fall. So my contractor has already invoiced me for that. And waiting until January or until February, I guess, to have this conversation just didn't seem realistic. Yes, Jim.
Lauren, I guess I have two questions. I'm just curious, the 57,000 is strictly oversight for the extended season of the end of this year and next year?
It is oversight plus there was a request from some of the regulators to document the site as we left it this winter.
Oh, okay.
To quantify how much work needed to be done and also to understand when they do go back out in the spring if things have dramatically shifted because of the winter weather.
Right. Because, I mean, in your view, would you really see this project as being a half over, or it's more than half over? I mean, I guess I don't know what the timeline was that the engineer gave for
Yeah.
dam removal versus sediment removal, but um, I mean, it looks
Yeah.
like they're charging basically 50% more. But
Yeah.
okay.
Excellent question. Did the window just change for everybody? Okay. So the original budget I had from SLR was, again, that's $120,000. They still owe me an invoice for about 15 from what was already promised. And then they broke out this kind of piece of the winter shutdown documentation was about $14,000 that was required by one of our regulators. And then they're projecting out about $43,000 for construction oversight. And the winter visits to go back to the site because of that construction stormwater individual permit. I think they have to go back out at least once a month for 6 months. So that's part of that number as well. And then I think we're all collectively estimating that it'll take about 4 or 5 more weeks this spring to actually finish the project. And so they're anticipating 18 visits associated with that.
Okay. I guess I'm assuming from, is the regulator's point of view that this is a good insurance policy in case, we get some massive rain in the spring and the whole lump of sediment moves downstream. You did what you could.
Yes. Yep. And I will say too that the engineers are billing on a actual time and expenses basis throughout this whole project. It has not been like a task or deliverables based basis. It has been actual. And so to that point too, the original $120,000 we hadn't originally expected to spend, but again, it ended up being 5 extra weeks this fall of work. So they did eat that budget there.
I mean, yeah, it seems like you got an incredibly good deal from the contractor.
Yes. He's been great to work. He has gone to the mat for this project. He has been trying everything. Just one of those projects.
Who is it?
It's Sloan's.
Okay.
It's a newer firm, but he's definitely experienced. And I do have all of his numbers and estimates laid out too, if anybody's interested in those. They are all based on the original bid, and basically, like, he just had to duplicate a lot of work. So, yeah.
Sarah?
So it seems like we don't have a choice. I mean, you can't just leave it this way because then it negates all the other work you're doing, right? I mean, in other places with the phosphorus that'll be dumped in there. Is my reading wrong?
But I love that you phrased it that way, because that's actually exactly what I had said to Dean when Dean and I first met. I said, there's no way to just not do this. Like, you can't stop now. So in my opinion, no. I think there's kind of like a due diligence of making sure the whole BWIC understands why it went over, and um answering any question that anyone has for transparency and accountability's sake. And I think that's a really good use of our time. But in my opinion, like, I don't know what we would do if you guys said no, is basically where I'm at.
So hearing that, I move that we approve this extra money.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion from Sarah and a second from Ted. Is there more discussion? Dean?
Not to open the floor up to someone who's not a member as a reason to stir things up, but since I did see Chris Rotler join, and maybe Chris joined too late to have anything to say, but maybe he joined specifically because there was something he wanted to say. Is that all right to entertain any thoughts
I mean,
Chris might have had?
and I have another question too that I don't, doesn't, I'd like to just ask it at some point. Maybe
Yeah,
it would be good to have
absolutely.
Chris here. Yeah, I mean, I guess my question, and maybe it's helpful, Chris, to have you here, is just like, what is the responsibility? I mean, these are state funds. This is a project that's supported by the state. State regulators are requiring, I mean, a lot of it sounds like, I don't know if there could, yeah, it sounds like there couldn't have been necessarily avoidance of all of these costs if the state regulations hadn't, or the regulators hadn't required you to stop. But I guess I'm interested in like a broader conversation around how how we, take responsibility for these. Because I agree, with, the spirit of your question, Sarah and Lauren. It's like we need to make sure this like project gets wrapped up in a good way. And it's is a lot of money that's like seems like there's different places where um like maybe there could have been some savings somewhere. I don't know. There's like all kinds of things to be wrapped backwards. So I'm just curious on like on a bigger question, like does this make sense from like the QUISP point of view to be, it's like it feels like it's a natural and pretty easy place to come to make sure that we get this wrapped up. I mean, if you had had funding through like Watersheds United or some other source, like I don't know if they would be able to adjust it. So like it's good for the project that we can just say, yeah, we vote to approve this. But I don't know. I guess I'm just interested in like a bigger conversation around what is really the responsibility of the state and the QUISPs around these kinds of like very real, unexpected and like completely unexpected in the individual situation, but expected overall as we do complicated dam removals. Like, what's the role of these kinds of like a QUISP in a BWIC in making it whole, you know? And I'll put on the record like we need to support this, I think, but I am just curious about that larger conversation and the implications of it.
A question for me. I mean, we do have a motion on the table, and I don't know if this is the right time to talk about that, but I didn't join particularly to jump in about anything. I just couldn't join earlier. So yeah, I don't know, Dean, like what the cost efficiency is with these changes. Is this something you still
I do
support?
have that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if I could just interject, I would rather I mean, it doesn't sound like Chris wants to speak for the QUISP, and I would rather him not. He can certainly speak for DEC. I could speak for the QUISP, and I would say, as far as the cost effectiveness, it's still not bad. So, staff for the QUISP is not having heartburn with this request. It would be great if we didn't have to, but we're not having heartburn because of this request. It goes from, considering all of the costs and the estimates, it's going from 19,400 to 24,200 per kilogram. In the spectrum of dam removal projects, that's still on the low side. So in terms of the mix of funding that the QUISP gets, it's not going to distort things. It was a good deal to begin with, and it's still a reasonably good deal. So from the standpoint of the QUISP, which is responsible for the prudent use of the money in the Missisquoi Basin, we're not struggling with this. And to what Sarah said earlier, what else are we going to do? There's really there's no abandoning the project. It represents 47 kilograms, which is a good amount of phosphorus. So we want to see it through to completion. It would have been great to not have to be here, but we're here, and no one in the QUISP is really distressed by what's happened.
So that's great to hear. And that was a question I had. So yeah, I mean, again, I definitely support it. What would happen if it did make the phosphorus numbers not good? Like, where would we go? Would we just?
Well, fortunately, we're not in that position, but
Okay.
maybe
I mean, we
someday.
might be in the future. Like, I think just to someone else said, Ted, maybe like, Lauren, you guys are doing these projects that are like, they're complicated and they're big and they're kind of like amazing, and that they're like kind of pushing the envelope of like what can a QUISP do, and or what kinds of bigger projects can a QUISP fund, and I think we just need to be clear about like this is a potential thing that can definitely happen as we get into that space.
Yeah, I'm taking notes on this because I have
Yeah.
a final design coming for a pond dam removal, and our biggest concern is the 3 to 6 feet of sludge behind it and where it's going to go, and where is the hard bottom under that.
Yeah.
Those are the unknowns when you're starting to take these infrastructure pieces apart. It's an onion. There's layers upon layers.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the dam that I'm doing is a lot smaller than Lauren's Trout Brook, for sure.
Yeah, this is about 16,000 cubic yards of sediment.
Yeah. Where's the candle? It's tapered candle. There's one.
I'm happy to jump in with some thoughts, but I'd rather do it after the motion passes. And so just that seems a little formalistic, but I don't think anything I have to add will help this particular discussion. So just put me at the end or put me in a different meeting even, but so far, thumbs up to your process, to what you're looking at.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Kent.
Yeah, I'm in favor of this. I'm moving ahead with this. Give the district a pat on the back for what they've gone through. This sounds like an act of nature as much as anything else. What I really wanted to know, though, was that our state agency, that the different branches are working together and not working against each other. That's why I asked the question about who actually, shut it down and when. And it sounds like it was going to shut down anyway. And I was hoping the permitting process wasn't actually getting in the way of the work we're doing. And I don't think that's the case here. I really don't think that's what's going on. It seems like everybody's working in good faith and trying to come up with a good result here. So I'm in favor of it.
I would fully agree with that, Kent, as well. I think our regulators really tried to give us a space to do what we could, and when it just didn't make sense to keep going, we came up with a plan to go back in the spring. And we have gotten Chris Brunel did say, like, as soon as we can get back out there, we should get in touch with him, and we don't have to wait till the July 1st open stream window to start back up again. Like there can be some adjustments made here to try to get this done safely. And so that's been reassuring as well, that like as soon as it makes sense to go back out, we believe that we can.
Any more discussion before we move to
Should
vote
be
on
done
this
in a
motion?
couple minutes, okay?
Seeing none. All in favor, please indicate with a hand raise. Lindsay, Sarah, Dan, Kent, Ted, Heidi, Beth, Alaire.
I am
Abstentions?
abstaining. This is Lauren Weston.
Thank you. Thank you. Recorded Lauren's abstention. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you all. And I'm very happy to talk about lessons learned anytime, especially once it's over.
Okay.
Chris, yeah, I'd be curious what your thoughts
Can I
are.
jump in? Yeah. So, the BWIC was set up as part of Act 76 to evaluate risk. And risk is not something we normally think about in the grant world when you're applying for ERP back in the day, 5, 6, 8 years ago. But now this is right front and center. And ultimately, we're trying to achieve our clean water goals. And, so we want to be doing it efficiently. So the cost efficiency metric, I think, is front and center for your analysis of risk. But there are some times where you might go outside that and you might say, well, this project's too important. We want to spend the money on it anyway. So like your role in the BWIC is to evaluate priorities, weigh it against the basic cost efficiency metric and the risk of loss or things going sideways. And that this still is a project that is cost efficient is great. It'll get more complicated if an unexpected event makes some sunk costs turn into, like, let's say you've spent $700,000 and another 300,000 comes along you have to spend and it makes it inefficient, right? So something to think about is when you have a small project that's lower risk, but you have a large project, maybe you don't want to spend all that money on a large project if it's currently efficient but right on the edge because it could go sideways. On the other hand, you could say, well, this is too important. We're willing to take the risk anyway. So these are all normal things. And it sounds like you were willing to take the risk anyway, and it was a good investment. There are things to mitigate risk, and that's what the performance bond is for. That only covers certain situations. Obviously, there are things you cannot control, and sometimes you just have to lay out more funds for that. And that happens all the time with big infrastructure projects. You've heard of cost overruns with wastewater treatment plants and other things, and that's normal. So I don't know if that's helpful, but maybe it's just reassuring to know what you're looking at isn't crazy, or you're not crazy, like it's normal. But if that's helpful, that's sort of the big picture I can offer. And then I'll also say this, like, one area where I feel like we have not done a good job at DEC and where you have identified a need is in the space of communications and training. And if we were to have, you might have heard the message I just gave like 2 years ago, but like you're going to remember that. Like, you know what I mean? Like a little repetition, a little like, hey, what are you doing here at the BWIC? And a little communication would be good support that we could provide you, and we don't have the capacity for that, among other things, at the moment. I've identified that need, and I wish I could provide more of these perspectives, even if it's repetitive and annoying. I think there's value in that. I think there's also value in celebrating your good successes. Like these are really great projects. I'd love to talk about them more and all the good work you're doing, because you're all doing important work. Yeah. Anyway, so that's my big picture thought for the day.
Great. Dean, do you have concluding topics?
Simply just remind folks that the deadline for the current funding round is coming up January 21st. Thanks everybody for making time, as others have said. Happy holidays, have a great new year, and that's all I got.
Thanks,
Yeah,
everyone.
thanks everybody. Yeah, I appreciate everybody's flexibility. I know I had very limited window, so I appreciate the weird start time for me.
I deeply appreciate it. Truly.
Good luck.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Good luck. Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays.
Was there a motion to adjourn? Or does
There's
this,
not.
okay, it's
No,
by
we're
acclamation.
Yeah, we
Okay.
slid into adjournment.
Okay, and is everybody gone? I am still just trying to get my screen here.
Yeah, we've got a few. Yeah.
Okay.